Hi everybody, welcome to Google Plus Developers Live, Google Plus Sign In with iOS. I'm Silvano Luciani, I'm a developer programs engineer for the Google Plus platform, and not only my hair is upside down, my shirt is upside down too.
And I'm Xiangtian, and I'm a software engineer for the Google Plus iOS platform.
So, the topic today is iOS, and as you might know at Google, we produce awesome iOS apps. Google Maps is a clear example. Our own Google Plus iOS apps is a very cool and compelling app. Not only we produce amazing apps, we also want you to produce compelling apps. So we want to give you the tools to be able to produce engaging experience for your users. And that's why we have the Google Plus SDK. So what are we going to show today, Xiangtian?
Today we're going to show first the Google Plus the quickstart sample app inside the Google Plus SDK. We'll walk through with it. And the second, we're going to create a new iOS project from scratch that has the Google Plus iOS sign-in button.
Wait, you're doing an app from scratch, from empty to Google Plus sign-in working in 10 minutes live now?
Yes, and maybe even less than that.
I really want to see it. So let's start. First, if we want to get started with iOS, just go to our developers documentation site, developers.google.com/plus. On the left nav at the very top, you can find the Quick Start section. And the Quick Start is our set of sample application that we produce for many different languages that will get you started with the platform in less than 10 minutes. So we have Android, C#, Java, JavaScript, PHP, Python, Ruby. But today we are interested in iOS. So if we click on iOS, this is when we can get started with the setup process for the Quick Start. But before doing this, Xiangtian, what is the SDK?
The Google Plus iOS SDK provides a library, headers, and a sample app to help you to integrate the Google Plus components with your own app. So the SDK will make it easy for you to create a more engaging experience and connect with more users by integrating social into your app using these Google Plus platform features.
So inside the SDK, we have the Quick Start, which is the sample application. Xiangtian here is the author of this sample application. And what can you tell us about the Quick Start application for iOS?
Yes, the Quick Start application is an iOS Xcode project, and which lets you get started with the Google Plus platform in less than 10 minutes. The app demonstrates using the Google Plus sign-in button, using the SDK method to list people that user has circled, and also making requests to other Google Plus APIs. The first requirement is to install Xcode 4.5 or later. The second requirement is, of course, to download the SDK, but we'll get to this later. First, we need to create an API console project.
And let me show you how to do it. The first thing, you need to load the Google APIs console, which can be reached. At the point you would see the terms of services for the API, and it's really important that you read the terms of service carefully, because they will tell you what your app can and cannot do when using the Google Plus API. So once this is done, let's scroll up again, and now it's the time to configure the API access for your application. So let's click on API access. What we need is an O2 client ID, and it's very easy to create it. We have this big blue button. Let's just click it. Now we need to input the branding information for our project, and this information will be shown to the users when they see the consent dialog. So it's very important that the information that you input here is meaningful for the user. So use a product name that is the name of your application. If you have a product logo, use a compelling product logo here, because it will be shown in the consent dialog to the user. And if you have an on-page URL for your application, insert it here so that the user can fetch more info about your app at the time of giving consent to your app for accessing Google APIs on their behalf. We can now click Next, and now we are actually configuring the client ID. The first thing that we need to do is choose the application type, and in our case it's an installed application, and it's an iOS installed application. After we choose iOS, we can see some parameters which are specific to an iOS app. Xiangtian, can you explain to us these parameters?
Of course. So there are basically 3 fields. The first field is the bundle ID, which we need to enter the bundle identifier from your application's project summary. For our quickstart sample app, this is com.google.google+ sample. But of course, you will need to enter your own app's bundle ID there. Note that this bundle ID will also be used as a URL scheme for browsers or other apps to pass data back to your app, which we'll discuss about it a little bit later. Now, if your app is published in the Apple's iTunes App Store, enter your App Store ID in the App Store ID field down there. So you can determine the ID from the ID part of app URL from iTunes on the iTunes website. For example, it's like itunes.apple.com/us/app/id some number, and that number will put it there if you have a published app. Now there's also a flag for deep linking, which we'll talk about it another time. Note that you can always come back and update that settings for any existing clients anytime later.
Yeah, so now if I click Create Client ID, this will create, and as Xiangtian said, I can click on Edit Setting if I want to bring the configuration back and update some of the settings. Another thing to note is that if you have other apps, for example, if you have a web application and it's the same as this application, you can create another client ID, and this will allow you to share the branding info so that you can have consistent branding information that will be shown to the users in the consent dialogues across the different platforms that you support. So now that this is done, the next step to getting started with the Quick Start are downloading the app, open the It's Code project, and replace the client ID in the source code with the client ID that you've just created. And Xiangtian now is going to show it to us from his Xcode.
All right. So let's see. I have already downloaded Google Plus iOS SDK 1.2.1, which is the latest version, on my desktop. I will open this app, and it has a sample code directory, which is a quick start sample. And inside there, we should see. Let me do it again. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. The Google Plus sample.xcode project. Let me open it in the Xcode. Like Silvano just said, we need to replace the client ID with what we have registered in the app console, API console. For example, here, let's copy and paste the string value. All right, and then click Run. The sample app is running, and let's see how sign-in works. So first, I type in Google Plus sign in. It will take me to a web browser. Note that if you have Google Plus app installed, the user will actually redirect to Google Plus app, where the user no longer need to type in the username and password. So to give user a Google Plus experience, Google Plus single sign-on experience. However, on this simulator, I don't have Google Plus app installed. Now I'm directed to browser, and I need to type in my username and password. And after I type sign in, I am shown a consent screen. What can you tell about this consent screen?
So this is the consent screen where the user can give can authenticate your application to access to log in and access the Google Plus API on the user behalf. We saw the title is the name that you used in the configured in the API console. If we had a logo, we would see the logo as well. And we are now shown, Xiangtian is showing to you what the app is asking to the user. So the very first line is knowing name, basic info, and also a list of people you are connected to on Google+, and that will be visible to this application when they use the people.list method. Now, the user can edit this list, so they can choose to make all their circle visible or just a selection of the circle. The most important thing to know is that the API will never expose information about your circle to the app. The users will be returned as a flat list. In the second part, the consent dialog is showing which type of app activities this application wants to write. And in this case, we have the general app activity, we have purchases, check-in information, comments, and so on. At this point, the user can choose to which users these app activities will be visible. Once again, they can choose all their circle, they can choose a subset of their circles, but very importantly, as a preeminent option, they have only you, which means that the activity will be private and visible to the users only.
Yes. Okay, so let's say we accept. And this will get back to the third-party app. So in our case, Google Plus sample. And the sign-in has been succeeded. So that's for the quick start sample app.
Now, that was easy.
Yeah.
Now you promised us something.
Yes.
So what did you promise us? I want to see it.
I promised that to start a new app from scratch that has a Google Plus sign-in button, just like in the quick start sample app. And let's see how it works. Let me first install this just in case. All right, and I close Xcode window. So I'm going to in Xcode have this Xcode have this new project. Now I'm going to use a single view application just for demonstration purpose, and I'm going to call it Google Plus sample as well. But this name doesn't really matter. You're going to use your own name. And use all default settings and create on the desktop as well. All right. So the first step is to integrate the library and headers and open source files from Google Plus SDK, which I have downloaded into desktop. To do that, you need to add these files into our new app. We add two directory, library, and open source. Now, what I do here is to create groups for any added folders, but if you have already been using some of the open source files in your own app, you may want to add them individually so you don't end up like having duplicate open source files in two different directories.
Makes sense.
Click Add. Still, we need to do some tweaking of settings. The first thing is that we need to add two frameworks. One is the security, and the second is system configuration. We also need to change build settings to add a new linker flag. If you are not already using it, the linker flag would be -Objective-C. This ensures libraries with Objective-C classes with categories links correctly. So it's -Objective-C as part of other link flags. And the third one, as we mentioned earlier, we need to add the bundle ID as the URL scheme we support.
So we already seen this. This is the one that we configured before in the API console project.
Yes. So it's, in our case, it's com.google.google plus sample. Google.google plus sample. All right. So that's all for the settings, but we still the same as what we did for the quick start sample app. We still need to set the client ID. which is the client ID for our newly created API, Google API console client. So here, we add an import, GPP sign in, and here in application did finish with launching with options, we add GPP sign in shared instance dot client ID equals to some value, which is still in my clipboard, which is the same thing here.
Yeah, it's the same client ID that we created for the project before.
Yes. Now, the application is ready, but it does not do anything yet. Let's see how we add the sign button into this application. Let's open Storyboard, or if your app use XIB file, that would work too. We add a control, a button, give it some size, remove the label, because sign library will add their own labels, and give the class called GPP sign button. All right. Of course, if you prefer not to use a UI editor, but rather do it programmatically, you can do that as well. All right. Let's see how it works. I will use iPhone simulator and run.
Build succeeded, but
yeah, the build succeeds, but we have a small problem here. Let me try again.
Live demos.
Yeah, that's live demos. Reset the simulator.
Okay.
And
so Xiangtian has resetted the status of the iOS simulator.
Let's try it again.
Let's try again the build. No.
Seems it didn't work out. This was
the live demo is not with us.
Yeah.
Do you have a working?
Let's see if I have a working version before.
This is the sample that we built just before starting, which was working.
Which was working, but it didn't work either. Bummer.
Yeah, that's what happened when you try to do live demos. There is something wrong. Anyway, I don't have a clock, but that was less than 10 minutes, and we did 99% of it.
Yeah.
We'll leave you the 1% to you at home as homework. I'm pretty sure that you will succeed. Do we want to move to some questions, Xiangtian? We have some questions that are recurring. So the first one is, does Google Plus sign-in work for users that don't have the Google Plus app installed on their iOS device?
Yes, I think I've already mentioned it during the demo that if you have a Google Plus app installed, the user will redirect to Google Plus app. They don't have to sign in again, and will redirect back to your app immediately. However, if you do not have the Google Plus app, it will just use a web browser, which you'll need to sign in if you're not already signed in, and go into this consent flow, like we have demoed.
Second question is, does it work for users that do not have a Google Plus account? I can reply to this. If they don't have a Google Plus account, we have a very fast flow, which is composed of 2 screens, which will allow them to create or upgrade the user to Google Plus, and they will be able to access it in 10 seconds, 15 seconds at most.
Yes.
So I think we don't have any more questions. Do you want to make another try to fix it, or shall we call it a day?
Let's see if it works.
While Xiangtian is trying to fix the live demo, let me remind you that you can find docs on everything that we show you and even more, all the functionalities that the Google Plus platform offers at developers.google.com/plus. If you want to see more code examples, go to our org on GitHub, github.com/Google+, and you will find all the quickstart, and also you will find the source code for Photo1, which is our end-to-end sample application. We have a Java backend, we have an iOS client, and we have an Android client. If you have any additional questions, you can reach us in the Google Plus developer community on Google Plus. And also you can use Stack Overflow. Use the tag Google-Plus. We monitor questions on the tag daily, and we try to reply as fast as we can, usually within the same day. Also, if you have any feature requests or if you want to file a bug, use our issue trigger. You can find the URL for the issue trigger in our developer docs. And this will allow Xiangtian to fix bugs on the iOS if you find any bugs on the iOS, us to fix bugs on any of the other features of the platform. And if you have feature requests, remember to start your feature request so that we'll be able to grade the feature request and take into account first feature requests with an higher priority. I think no success for today. Well, I think you did great. Live demoing is live demoing.
Yeah.
So, Xiangtian, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for letting me join this live presentation, and sorry for the demo.
No worries. And see you soon.
See you.